Careful what you say. Be nice.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to Planning and Zoning Office report.
Make a motion to change the agenda.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry, John. I can't believe I forgot about it. I need a motion to amend the agenda to move the Kednal ordinance discussion to just up one, above subdivision ordinance revision. Mr. Schultz is supposed to attend, and he needs to get in and out as quick as possible. John Scher made the motion. Is there a second? Second by Adam Zumwalt. Call roll.
Zumwalt,
Yes.
Curtis,
Yes.
Scher,
Yes.
Raymond.
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Okay, now moving on to Planning and Zoning Office report.
Okay. Not much going on. We only had 2 building permits in the month of November, both residential. And you can see the sheet. One was a full building on a residential site, and the other was an addition to a house. Claims you go around for inspections. Construction inspections have been down because Bates fell and broke his leg and has been kind of indisposed. So I'm going to reach out to that other contractor that showed interest in being a backup to get that, so we can get that covered going forward. There's been some inquiries up in the Melks Grove area about the new transmission lines that are going in and where they're actually going to be sited. According to our ordinance, we do not require any, debate whether it's a public or private utility. Some say it's private, some say it's public. Jim Devine didn't think it really, they supply power to the public even though it's a private company, they're selling their power, so they would fall under probably the public utility part of it, so there would be no height or restrictions like that. But if you've been up there and they've done several transmission lines in the Kankakee County, they pushed them way in onto the, like, 60, 100 plus feet in, away from the ditch, onto basically onto private property. Basically what that is those are participating property owners and with their leases, they pretty much, the companies have pretty much an easement on any part of that tract of the land. So they basically put them in where they wanted to. Kankakee County only really required them to be outside, just outside the regular utility and road easements, but they decided on their own to go in even farther. Now, the ones that are coming from Ford County across to hook up with those, most of them will have the same issue, except for, according to a couple people who've called, they have staked out. They haven't put any in yet, but they staked out probably inside the township or county and utility easements. I had a discussion with Jim Devine on that, and he called an engineer at the Illinois Commerce Commission, and they cannot install a utility pole or transmission line unless they have approval. If it's inside the easement, the right-of-way or anything like that, they have to have permission either from the township or the county to do that. So I made Joel more aware of that, because he asked me about it at finance, and I told him what Jim told me, and Joel's going to get in touch with Rudy Skleer, who is the road commissioner up in Melks Grove. So I'm sure Rudy will be on top of it, so if they're putting in any transmission inside the right-of-ways, I'm sure we'll find out about it, and then we'll pay the appropriate action at that point. But on the participating property owners, if they're outside way, if they're off the right-of-way, they pretty much got fair game since they signed those leases. Non-participating, they would have to get permission from the property owner on that property. And if you notice, there's some strange jobs. If you drive around, there's some strange jobs in those big transmission lines in Kankakee County, and that's because some non-participating owners said no way. So that's an update on that. If you get any phone calls, I don't know if you have or haven't. Okay, and then we have next, and it's on the agenda next, is application for rezoning. And that, anybody have any questions for the office for me right now, or if not, then the rezoning is all I have left.
Okay. I don't think I have any on it, but ready to move on, we can move on to it. The application, Robert Christoph Albert, to rezone a tract of 5.87 acres from A1 district to rural homestead. This was presented to Zoning Board of Appeals last week, I believe.
Yep. Last Tuesday night.
And it was unanimous. They passed it unanimously. You have anything to say? You're more than welcome to stand up and have any input. Everybody has a picture of it.
The Google map is what I put. That's the track. It's an existing track. It's all grass. No, two outbuildings. He's currently the owner. He uses one of the buildings for some cattle. So it's a small head of cattle. Nothing, no major large operation there. There used to be a house on it years and years ago. It got torn down, and obviously the time has passed when they could rebuild in the footprint. So that's why they have to have it rezoned. But it's the soil and water report came back fine for building, and obviously if they decide to build, if it's rezoned and they decide to build, they would have to get the proper, there's an existing well on the property right now. Obviously the health department would have to approve that existing well and then approve any new septic system they put in with the new construction. So that's that in a nutshell.
House location is on the south side of the driveway, I believe.
Be on
Right
the
by the
south
curb.
side, right.
Okay. So right in that, on that map, it'd be about right in this area.
Yep.
So,
Way up the lane.
so it's pretty straightforward. Seems like a great location for
And we're
a house.
playing far off the township road setback
Yep.
of 80 feet, so there wouldn't have any issue with that, where there's like tentatively going to cite it.
Any further discussion? Is there a motion to approve? Motion made by Phil Curtis. Is there a second? Seconded by Adam Zumwalt. Discussion? Call the roll.
Zumwalt?
Yes.
Curtis?
Yes.
Sure?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes. Motion carries. Next step will be county board.
On board Tuesday at 9. This one you are not required to attend.
Either one.
You're not required to. The first two you're required, one of you is required to attend,
It's helpful.
but it's helpful if at least one of you shows up, but you're not required to. If something comes up, don't freak out.
Tuesday.
Huh?
Tuesday at 9. Not 10:15.
10:15.
It'd be farther down on the agenda, so realistically it'd be about probably an hour.
Yeah, actually 10:15
Till we get
might be
there.
a good time, because the planning and zoning reports at usually the end of all the committee reports, so it takes quite a while to get through all that, so.
Okay.
We appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to kennel ordinance discussion. Last month, we tabled it until everybody had time to go home and do some research. I'm assuming everybody did some research. It's kind of a tricky thing, not sure what to do with the number of dogs. That's the issue, how the number was figured out, if it was just pulled from a hat. Nobody knows. I've asked Dale Schultz to be here to, if he had any input into it. He helped write it. If you have any input, Dale, you're more welcome to speak. The floor is yours.
I don't really have any input other than, I don't remember specifically where the number came from. We always leaned pretty hard on Dr. Fennell at the time. I guess my main thoughts include the fact that the dog plan or program, registration program, is essentially a pet population control program. If we were, it's just slanted toward population control, and I guess that's the reason that I would think an increase would not be in the benefit of the county. I don't see any reason for that number to be lowered either, quite honestly. But I mean, there's quite a difference in animals, in dogs. A lot of times, I think one of the concerns was the number of dogs that might be in the house, and obviously that's personal preference. I've known some people in the past that have had 2 or 3 pit bulls in the house with little kids also. It would make a lot more sense if they were something like a equal or smaller, or something like that, but that's, again, personal preference. So I don't know that I can lend any real information to the meeting.
All right. I were just more or less curious where that came from. John said he spoke with Donna. Donna thought it was, like I agreed with you, thought it was a recommendation from Dr. Fennell. So
I think that's, she echoed pretty much what Dale said.
anybody have any input?
I did a little bit of research on the federal level and the state level. I couldn't find really much of anything on the federal level. On the state level, there's some things that I'm not sure if they're confusing or not, but
usually they are.
Illinois has a kennel operator's license, I believe they call it, or an act for that. And that act states that if you have 5 or less, if you have 5 female dogs, you are not a kennel operator. So, and then further down in that same act, they talk about foster homes, people that are fostering dogs temporarily, and they say that the limit on that is 4. So I'm not sure if that's a contradiction as well. They do distinguish in the, and this gets a little bit perhaps to what you were talking about, is the number of dogs that someone might have in an undesirable situation. The cruelty, there's an animal cruelty type of ordinance. There's really, I think, 3 ordinances that the state has that pertain to dogs. And the cruelty one pretty well covers a lot of the issues that we have discussed that could come up with dogs. For example, they talk about a companion hoarder. That's someone that has, and they define companion dogs as pets. They also include horses and cats as pets, as companion animals. But they talk about companion hoarders, and they talk about that being a situation where sanitary conditions in the home or even with the animals wherever they're housed is determined to be unacceptable. And the animal control warden and those people are empowered to deal with those situations, whether it be to take the animals away from the property, or if they can't get the situation remedied or what have you. And I think that was something that was one of the issues that is in our ordinance also. And then they talk about, generally speaking, separating people who are breeders and boarders. In other words, those are businesses, as being a different type of classification or situation than a person, a private person, just having their animals for whatever the reason might be that they have them. I guess the sum and substance of what I found is that there does not seem to be any number for dogs that anybody has established. I think the statute in the state relegates that to individual, primarily they say municipalities or political subdivisions, which in this case would be the county. And they do give the county the authority to prepare an ordinance such as we have, and there's a fair amount of latitude included with that also. So I'm not sure where all of this leaves us. I'm not sure that the research that I did is complete. It takes quite a while to read through these state statutes. The one that I have here on animal cruelty is 40 pages. Okay? So trying to read through all that and digest it and make notes is not necessarily an easy task. But so I don't know that there necessarily is anything that says it should be this or should be that. It's kind of left up to the different counties. Although, if I were going to make a thought on it, it seems to me from what the state statutes have, when they say it's up to the municipalities. I think they're looking at municipalities and large areas of people concentrated rather than rural areas as to where some more stringent restrictions might be appropriate. So, beyond that, as far as I know, there's other counties like Ford County. I don't believe they have any restriction whatsoever on the number of dogs or animals that a person can have in that regard. And I mean, if you look at it from the standpoint of the cruelty to the Animal Act and so forth, what that's covered, if that's one of the interests of this ordinance and this committee is to not have those kind of situations, then I think that's already covered and empowered by the state statute. And I don't know that we necessarily need to go beyond that unless somebody thinks there's a reason to do so.
As far as the ordinance itself, other than the numbers, I gave it a quick read through, and I didn't really see anything that jumped out at me as far as needing updating or changing. It was just revised in 2009, so not much has changed in 6 years.
Well, there is one thing on the over here. It talks about the approval process and so forth and review channels. It identifies regional planning commission. I think if we're not going to have a regional planning commission, that's a minor thing, but that would have to be changed.
The potential of just removing that. Oh, I'm not sure what everybody wants to do on it. I mean, I'm content with the number myself, but it's up to the committee. If the committee has any further input, wants to keep kicking the can down the road. Larry?
You know, I feel like every county passes the numbers to their specific needs and their specific needs of the people in the county. And it's not, I don't believe it's good to look at other counties, what they do, and they shouldn't look at us, what we do. We should do what we want to do for our county's needs.
All right. The only, I guess, a major advantage of raising it is, I mean, I'm not sure what we have for a problem with people having more dogs than is allowed. I mean, the possibility of maybe a slight bump in income from people actually registering them, knowing they won't be penalized.
And the majority of kennel licenses that we do have are for people who work borders. They take in pets for people going on vacation and stuff. And other than that, when people call to inquire if they're thinking about having another dog, if they hear the $400 and all the process, they say, hell with it, I'll just keep my 4 and not worry about it. So I don't, you do what you want. I mean, that's what I get, the phone calls I get, and the licenses we do have are actually people that John said we're kind of want to run a business. And Dr. Fennell Pryor and Dr. Youssef and Shay now monitor those facilities because they're in charge by, with their job to make sure that they're maintained, and then there's a complaint that they follow up
table it and kick the can a little farther down the road until we can decide on a number? I mean, they're really...
I don't, there's no reason to.
Yeah, I mean,
The number's not gonna get any better next month or the month after.
that's a problem.
I don't really see any problem with the way it is. I mean, if we say we increase till 10 dogs, well, then 10 dogs ain't gonna be enough, you know? There's not gonna be a perfect number in my opinion. I don't, I mean, it really doesn't bother me one way or the other, but it's just one of those things where we're at 4 now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's up to anybody else, but well, they got a better number, you know?
I'm content with the number everybody else says. The only revision would be the removal of Regional Planning Commission.
And that's a clerical move.
Yeah, and that's... I'd say we beat this just about as much as we can. Been on the agenda for a long time. Is there a motion to table it indefinitely?
But,
And revisions?
what,
Or you want to just...
well, you're gonna have those clerical revisions.
think
I mean, you do have to meet.
we'd have to go through...
I
don't know if it's
I'm
worth it.
guessing, but if you adopt these changes later, then we'll have to go through all the ordinances and see if there's the Regional Planning Commission's mentioned anywhere, and it'll be a clerical move, and we just have to,
We need to go through zoning board of appeals just for that.
I wouldn't think so, but you want to run by Jim. It's up to
Yeah.
you, but it's just like, but if this is the big one, and if you do that, then I think the others can do, it's just a clerical change.
Didn't we vote last month to make regional planning inactive?
Yeah. Yeah, it is inactive. Well, there's nothing else we can really do on that till we talk to Jim Devine. We'll just move on, come back on that. We have to go through zoning board of appeals for one line. I hope not.
We don't.
Yeah.
No, it's a clerical.
Just clerical.
All right. Well, we'll move on to subdivision ordinance revisions. Everybody should have a copy of the changes that have been also been kicked down the road a lot. There's essentially just a lot of changing the wording. We've all seen it 100 times. Anybody have any discussion on it?
The only reason for holding up on it was clarification on the regional planning deal, and otherwise I think we've already approved.
Now it's, is there a motion to approve it? Approve changes? Moved by Aaron Zumwalt, seconded by Ernest Curtis. Call the roll.
Zumwalt?
Yes.
Curtis?
Yes.
Sure?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes. Motion carries. Moving on to zoning board of appeals appointments.
I have 5 members whose terms end in this month, and I asked them at the zoning board of appeals hearing last Tuesday if they'd be willing to continue serving, and they all 5 said yes. There's Steve Rapp, Don Dini, Matt Wingren, Harold Boyd, and Marvin Andrus. So I'm submitting those names for reappointment to the zoning board of appeals. The other 2 members still have terms left, and it's a 5-year term, and they all agreed to that. Now, whether they all, obviously, we've had turnover on the zoning board quite a bit, so, but it doesn't hold them. It's just the length of the statute says the term is on the zoning board of appeals, so.
Who are the other 2, Russell and
Russell
Wayne
and,
Wagner? Wagner, is he?
Yeah, Wayne Wagner.
Are you satisfied with it?
Yes, they show up. And they investigate. I mean, I know 3 of them went by this property that we did today. They actually drove by it and looked at it, so. And they've been at it for quite, few years and they understand. So I'm satisfied with them, so if that's what you want.
They seem to know what they're talking about. As far
But,
as,
yeah, I am going to have to appoint a new chairman. Russell doesn't want to be chairman anymore. His hearing's to the point now where he has a real struggle.
He's going to stay, he's just not going to be chairman.
He'll finish, I'm guessing he'll finish out this term and then make a decision, but he doesn't want to be chairman going forward, and I have to find a new chairman, but that's an internal thing, not a...
So what do you need, a vote?
Just have to go to the full board for appointment. It could be I don't think that either be a motion or just a recommendation. It's going to be on it's going to be on your list of appointments and then on the bottom of your agenda for the board meeting.
all right. We'll just, Dale?
Dan, just a question, those 5 people, they should be alternating terms, shouldn't they?
Well, we looked at the statute, and I don't know, me and Brian were, she asked me about it, and I said, well, it's been so miscombobulated for years, because people have been quitting in between, and then, like Don and Steve Rapp are finishing out unexpired terms, so they have to be up. But we can, I mean, I can decide, if you want me to, I can talk to them and see who wants to be on a 1 year or 2 year.
I don't want anything.
Well, you're correct though, that the statute does technically recommend that, but but it would be more of a, I mean, I'd have to make a lot of phone calls in the next couple of days to give you when their terms expire. I don't think I'd have a problem getting those people to agree to different terms if you want to do it that way.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a bad idea. Okay.
So I'll have Peg call them guys this afternoon and then make sure Brian has the term, the year they expire on the county board agenda. Is that what you want?
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's okay. I mean,
There's not too many people fighting for that, is there?
no, and
It's been waiting, Mike.
and I'm guessing a couple of them will jump at the 2 or 3 because they were kind of 5 years. So I'm not going to have a problem.
Be locked in that town.
It's a good thing to have them locked in.
That's what I mean, I don't think everybody wants it.
Right.
Let's send it to full board with a motion. Just make it cleaner. Moved by John Scher, second by Ernest Curtis. Then the recommendation, send these to full board for approval. Discussion. Call the roll.
Curtis?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
He stepped out for a minute.
Okay.
Dumont?
Yes.
That was a short minute.
Motion carries. Send them to full board for approval. Next is review the claims. Here's the claims right there, and everybody has a sheet of them. Pretty straightforward. Well, give everybody a minute to review them. Here you go, Dale. Need a copy, Dale?
No, I just wondered if you're about done, right?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. Thanks.
For whatever.
Hey, you may have.
It is input.
If you got a second, I got one other item I want to do on the new bill. You could, if you want to do.
Yeah, we can do that.
I had a call this morning from the mayor of Clifton. He says they're having their building inspector went out, and he was looking for help. And he knows Barney, knew Barney who does plumbing for us already, and he asked if he could ask our inspectors to do work for them. And I put a call into Jim, because they're just on per diem, they're on mileage. I don't know if it's liability to the county to have them subcontract to another entity or not. I'm just showing that, making you guys aware of that, because I know that he's already talked to Barney. I don't know, he lives in the village of Clifton, I don't know if you've heard anything.
hadn't heard a word.
Yeah. So, and like I said, I gotta call it to Jim, I haven't heard back yet to get his opinion on if it's a problem that we allow that to happen. But all we pay is per diem and they're on call, they're not technically a full-time employee with benefits, so I don't know if that's an issue or not.
As long as it's, county's not liable for any instance, I wouldn't see where it would be.
Would Clifton pay the mileage for it?
For theirs, they would have to. They would have to pay
Yeah.
theirs. And then whatever they agree. I mean, they'd be, to me, they'd be subcontractors, they'd be.
But it would be no cost to the county.
No. My concern is liability, because they technically do get paid by us, and they are, when they're on the job for us, they are covered by, on their blanket policy, I'm sure, for that, so. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Everybody seen the claims?
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve the claims, send them to the full board? Motion made by John Schur, seconded by Adam Zumwalt.
Is this the first month that we're getting mileage from the zoning board of appeals on here? We've been getting them before? Okay, I just had to pay close enough attention to it. I know we authorized that some time ago.
Discussion? Further discussion? Call the roll.
Zumwalt?
Yes.
Curtis?
Yes.
Sure?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes. Motion carries. Moving on to old business. Is there any old business come before the committee? See none, move on to new business. Any further new business? Seeing none, we'll need a motion to adjourn. Moved by Ernest Curtis, seconded by Adam Zumwalt. All in favor, say aye.
100 East Road,
Yeah.
2100.